Hello, I am going to paint a tiny landscape using the new Shibui palette from Deep Deep Light. You're going to see me using it a lot in dandelion lessons, my own abstract work, my own landscape work, my own work in general. And for me, it's the perfect palette as we enter this time of year. Whereas the Flower Moon palette is more spring and summer, beautiful for wildflowers and summery things, interiors and all of that. Shibui palette is a little bit more quiet and muted. It's a whisper, and it's perfect for this time of year when we feel a little bit more at ease and internal, right? So I have my palette here, some water. I'm going to use a Chinese brush, and I'm going to make some mixes. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with a little bit of indigo. And some blueberry to make myself a sort of a milky, steely blue. And I've got everything else at the ready. Actually, these I just was using them, but I have the heat on in my house, so things dry fairly quickly. So I'm going to give them each a drop of water so they're ready to go. All right, so I'm going to start with this mix, and I'm going to drop into it some of the other colors as I go, and I really want a moon, and so I'm going to start with one. This beautiful, my moon's about to get smaller. Oh, I don't want to start over. That happens sometimes, right? I'm gonna let the extra paint just sort of collect here at the horizon line. My main color, I'm going to take a little bit more indigo and drop it in, maybe even a touch more. And just let the colors run down. I'm not overly concerned. I'm going to drop some mint in. And then let the color sort of rush back up. And I can always soak up if it starts to go too high. I'm going to take some mint now and just drop it in places. Because you've got this beautiful transparent wash, and then you add in some very sort of milky, opaque. And it does beautiful things. How it pushes the pigments around a little bit and gives you a cumulus-like effect. And I'm even going to take a little bit of reed buff right around the moon. A little bit of halo there. This is quite wet, and I can take the tip of a damp brush and sort of wick it up a little bit if I need to, but Mostly, mostly I just want to let it be. I'll put a little bit more mint. And I've got this very sort of subtle sky. Now, the one thing that I tend to add to everything is sparkle. There is some sparkle in here. We will use it. It's called darkling. But I just want to add a little bit of a pearl. That's just me. I always keep it on my desk to go with any palette. I'm just going to drop it in right around the moon, because when it dries, it'll give it this beautiful halo. It's very subtle, especially when you drop it into more opaque colors, or if you're not just using it by itself, it becomes quite beautiful. So I'm going to start with a raw sienna here, but it's nighttime or dusk. So I'm going to add a little bit of tuff to the raw sienna, and I want it a little bit, and pull it across so it has, and don't be afraid to touch and let it spill down. That just thrills me when that happens. So by adding the tuff to it, it just sort of gives it a nighttime feel. And then I'll take some straight raw sienna, just drop it in toward the bottom in like a vignette. You know how when you vignette a photo, it kind of creeps up along the edges a little bit? Well, we can do that in a landscape too. We can sort of creep up on the edges and it frames it beautifully. I'm going to take a little bit of reed buff. And where I've got moonlight, just going to add that there. And you see how where they're exchanging with one another. So some of the sky went into the earth, and now some of the earth is going up into the sky. And that to me is incredibly beautiful. Now I want to think about my tree line. And in my mind, I want to use midori and a little bit of green earth. And so I'm going to start with green earth. And I'll start with it knowing that it's going to be very subtle. Green earth is a whisper. So I can put this in and just test it. You know, I need to wait another minute, because what I don't want to happen is I don't want it to rush up into the sky too much, right? So I can push it back down a little bit and just watch, because I don't want it to be so dry that I lose the opportunity for it to have an effuse edge. But I don't want it to be so wet that it rushes up into the sky, right? And you can barely see, you won't be able to see this, but the halo is starting to appear from that color, and it's just gorgeous. Yeah. While this is sort of wet, I'm going to pull through a metal nib of a pen, just in a few places. And this will have more paint on it eventually, but So I'm watching. I don't want it to be so dry that it gives me a hard edge, but I don't want it to be so wet that it rushes up into the sky and destroys this beautiful sort of muted sky that I have. But I am going to add a little bit more mint because it's just starting to dry enough where it will push the edges of the paint and give me some beautiful cloud edges. And then we have this little tiny bit of reed grass. Little tiny bit of halo. Okay, I'm almost there, I think. So I'm going to start with just straight that's acting better now. So I want to put the baseline with this very subtle color. It's actually a little bit lighter than what's already there. That'll give me a really soft edge. And then I'm going to go into the Midori. Just straight on the brush. And you can even tilt it just a little bit so it stays, so it doesn't rush straight up and it stays kind of at the bottom. And then when you let it go down, it will go up again. So I'm pulling it across. I think we're safe. A little bit higher in some areas, a little bit lower in others. And this color is just magical, what it does. So soft. Now we just take a clean damp brush to pull things down so they don't go crazy in the sky. So there's my second layer. Then I'm going to take Midori and I'm going to mix it with just the tiniest bit of darkling. And that just makes it darker. And it will give it a little hint of shimmer. But still in like a green way. It just looks so beautiful. It looks like trees at night. Then I'm going to let it set for a minute. Again, always mindful of my edges. When you tape paper like this, things tend to creep up. It's like a wick. So you just got to be mindful of that. Now, here at the baseline, I'm going to use reed grass. And peach. When it's still wet. So these very soft, opaque colors reach up into the green and look like the feather of grass. I want to take a little mint and bring it down into the field. A little more raw sienna. This is one of the most beautiful raw siennas I've ever used. I actually had them make me a big pan of it because I use it so much. Deep Teeth Plate will do that too. If there's a color that you really, really love, they'll make you a big pan. And then a little tough. To bring the nighttime vignette. And a little bit of bark. Dry my brush and take care of that wick. Beautiful. And now, a little bit more darkling. Bring the land forward. The closer things are, the darker. Peach. Can even put a touch of peach in the sky. And there's my wick. See how that happens? You just have to be mindful when you tape, when you're painting so small like this, and that you want a nice border because it's so tiny. It deserves to have the border of the paper around it. They look so beautiful framed, floating on a piece of mat board. so beautiful. I wish you could see. I don't know how much the camera will pick up all of the nuance and texture in this piece. It's just magical. It's really dreamy. I really wish my moon was rounder, but that's just, it's not quite a full moon. It's really effortless atmosphere to use a palette like this. I wish you could see it. So sometimes when I'm almost done, and when this is dry, the shimmer will come out a little bit more. I'll bring through some mark making. Just work on that little vignette area a bit. Another great use for the kakimori nib. And sometimes if I feel like I need a little bit more softness, there. So beautiful. When it's dry, I'll take a picture and put it in the put it into the video. It's also very dark and gloomy here today. It's the sky is, I mean, it feels like it's 7 at night and it's 2 in the afternoon. So it's difficult with the light, but yeah, it's just exquisite, the textures and colors. So that is a very simple landscape with a Shibui palette. It's sort of like instant atmosphere. It just feels subtle and nuanced and harmonious all at the same time. You know, you can also go back into a sky. You see what happened with the when I put the mint on top, it made this sort of cloudy, brumous type look. And you can go back in with your sky color, so don't, you know, keep it there. And you can enhance that a little bit later. Once it starts to dry, you can go in and drop in and just give it some little details like that. You can even wait till it's drier and it will go darker, or you can do it like that. The skies are a lot of fun, but it's that balance between opaque and transparent that gives you that sort of misty, cloudy, brumous look. I do it on a lot of my skies. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm sure you will be seeing me use this palette a lot on Patreon. It is great fun. All right, I will see you again soon. Take care.